I'm not saying this is a good idea. And heck, I'm not even saying it's a unique idea. We've made videos about this in the past. But it's being brought up once again because of a brand new piece posted on donlescoulisses.com. We're talking today about Seattle Kraken center Shane Wright, and whether or not the Montreal Canadiens, the team that a lot of us thought was going to take Wright first overall back in 2022, could stand to actually trade for Wright in 2026. Is this a worthwhile thought? Well, that's going to be up to your judgment. Shane Wright, right now, is 22 years old, 6 feet, 198, right-handed signer, signed till the end of 2027 on his entry-level deal. This has been a pretty doozy contract when you think about the progression and what Shane Wright has been able to accomplish so far throughout the contract, because his first year under the Seattle Kraken organization saw him not actually fulfill his rookie campaign. He only had 8 games played. He didn't play that 9th game to get that 1-year status fulfilled. But because of all the loopholes that Seattle went out there and executed, they had Wright on their NHL roster scratched for multiple weeks, which gave him the opportunity to play in the AHL, where he was actually pretty good. Then he went over to Team Canada at the World Juniors, and then he went back to the OHL, and then he wrapped up the season with the AHL playoff team. There were so many transactions with Shane Wright in that 2022-2023 season. Okay, you're not going to see the technicalities of them put on here, but Shane Wright was all over the place in his technical first year as a pro. He then spent the next season in Coachella Valley before becoming a full-time Kraken in 24-25. 44 points in 79 games played as a true NHL rookie. That's not bad. Like, admittedly, for a guy who at the time was 21 years old, getting 40 points and almost 20 goals in your first NHL season? That's pretty remarkable. However, Wright dipped the year after. This most previous season, he only had 27 points in 74 games. Definitely not indicative of a quality prospect that should have been taken first overall, especially the kind of guy that stared down Montreal's draft table after he got selected 4th overall and was very much harboring some ill feelings towards the Habs for not taking him. We've gone over this song and dance before, but Shane Wright, even though he was supposed to go number 1, by all accounts he was the top prospect in 2022. This is a player that ultimately slipped because Montreal went with the winger, New Jersey didn't need another center behind Hischier and Hughes, and in Arizona, they just saw more of Logan Cooley. They didn't think Wright would be available. So they took the guy that they liked more, and that's why Wright went 4th to Seattle. Now, in 2026, you've got an article posted on Don Les Coulisses asking whether or not this is the summer of Plan B. Shane Wright, anyone? Now, this headline, "This is the summer of Plan B," that can be misconstrued in a number of different ways, so we will just continue on past that, pretending there is no other connotation aside hockey talk. But Tony Patoin went out there and posted this on the website. This will be linked in the description down below. The article talks about how the Montreal Canadiens have a few things they need to do. You have Kent Hughes going out there and trying to bolster up this team. Some fans are talking about acquiring a right-handed defenseman as a priority. But while Dobson was a must-have last year, the writer here, Patoin, gets the feeling they'll want to see how Reinbacher performs in the fall before making another big move at right-handed defense. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. One thing is certain, if Kent Hughes wants to improve his team, the Canadiens are better positioned than the average NHL club to do so. Caution is advised on Hage and Swarovski, so when you talk about center options, there are some guys that could be talked about. Austin Matthews is an untouchable player in Toronto. Michael Hage, Dylan Larkin, Nico Hischier, Thomas, Kyrou, St. Louis. There are a number of guys that are discussed as potential options. But are there any backup plans to come to the rescue in this trading market? The Canadiens could attempt much more modest trades and target good depth players such as Blake Coleman in Calgary or the tenacious Ross Colton in Colorado. If we want to be a little more adventurous and daring, the poor man's Matthew Nye's Jake DeBrusk. Okay, that sounds like a great idea. Please, trade for Jake DeBrusk. Give Vancouver some juicy prospects. But if you scroll down, another name that is very likely to get traded, and that could surprise people, is Shane Wright. Even today, one wonders if Wright has gotten over not being chosen first overall by the Canadiens. One thing is certain, he didn't deserve to be there at the time. But he wanted to play for the Canadiens. Could he benefit from a change of scenery under Martin St. Louis, given that he was developed in a very strange way and never really found his footing in Seattle? Could his pride be piqued in the right way by a return to the scene of the crime? In any case, he's always seemed a little better when he plays against the Canadiens. That's often a good sign. When you think about it, Shane Wright has become exactly the kind of Dach, Newhook, Bolduc-style product that seems to appeal to the Montreal Canadiens every summer. If only it would cost a Kirby Dach or a Kapanen and say a late first. Why not Coconut? Patwan writes here, I've never been Shane Wright's biggest fan and I still have doubts about his personality and character. Maybe Hughes and Gorton do too. But I like his hockey sense, and I prefer his chances of becoming a good second or third line center in the NHL to those of Kapanen and Dach. After a 44-point season at 21 years old in 24-25, there is undoubtedly potential for at least 50 points per season and good 200-foot play in Wright's case. An interesting bet. Now, there isn't a comment section, it seems to be, on this idea as a whole. But guess what? YouTube has its own comment section, and I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comments, whether or not you think Shane Wright would be an ad worth making for the Montreal Canadiens. I'll say this right here. If you had to twist my arm, Shane Wright versus Oliver Kapanen, these guys are the same age, mind you. They're both 22 years old. Kapanen is coming off of a 37-point year with 20 goals in 82 games. Shane Wright, on the other hand, 12 goals, 27 points. We have seen more out of Wright in a prior season compared to Kapanen. Kapanen last year was in Laval and Sweden, and he was doing some pretty good work over there, but ultimately, Kapanen has had maybe a better past 12 months or so in the National Hockey League versus Shane Wright. But would it be crazy to say that Wright maybe has more upside longer term than Oliver Kapanen does? I know a lot of us like to look at the Kapanen story and say, hey, what an amazing steal by Kent Hughes. He was drafted 64th overall 5 years ago, and now he's an NHL player. That's great. But you also got to think about it. Shane Wright, he is technically a year younger because he turned 22 on January. Oliver Kapanen will be 23 in July. The age does favor Wright just a tad. And if you also want to talk about upside that we were projecting back in 2022 when Wright was drafted, there was always this expectation that Wright could be maybe a 90-point NHL center, somebody that's able to slow the game down with really great vision and see the game nicely, make plays, and just dominate on the ice. It's why he was so productive at the U18s back in 2021. 14 points in 5 games really put him on the map in a season where the OHL wasn't playing because of COVID. That's not even to say that the Kirby Dach conversation needs to be explored as well. You talk about Shane Wright versus Oliver Kapanen, that's a fair debate that deserves conversation on both sides. You can say that both of these dudes deserve their dues when talking about Wright versus Kapanen. Wright versus Dach, though? Oh, that's an entirely other conversation. Give me Shane Wright every day of the week over Kirby Dach. I know Dach just had a really interesting first round against the Tampa Bay Lightning, but he didn't do anything else after that, essentially. He had one really strong game where he was able to actually convert, a number of other games where he actually did look pretty good too, but overall, Dach is 3 years older, and I just believe a lot more in Shane Wright long-term versus Kirby. I don't know if that's crazy to say. Is there a world where Kirby Dach and or an Oliver Kapanen plus maybe a later draft pick makes sense for Shane Wright? I don't know. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, whether or not that's actually worth it, in your opinion, for the Canadiens to explore. I hope you enjoyed this video 9. And by.